Yeah. So we can begin to notice the content of the thoughts. And Jack Kornfield calls this exercise the top 10 tunes, that people will have sort of a top 10 playlist. If you really start to sit and watch the thoughts, they will sift out kind of into categories. So to make this more clear, I have, for me, it kind of works. Can you see this? I don't know how close I am. Maybe I'm not that close. Can you see that? Okay. So for me, I view it as mixing bowls. Like what happens is the different types of thoughts really fall into categories, and they kind of go into these buckets or bowls. One of the big ones is planning or past and future thoughts, right? How much of the time is maybe you're talking about, say, for example, I wonder if we're going to make what I'm going to have for dinner tonight, because and then there could be, because I never make dinner or whatever, there could be a belief under there, more kind of an a la carte thought. Thanks so much for joining the party. Um, but it could be, what are we having for dinner? But again, we're not here when we have to have some planning, by the way, or we would never save any money. We would never put on deodorant because we wouldn't think that we might offend people. We'd never leave the house, probably. We have to have a certain amount of forward thinking and planning. And the human mind, it can be so creative and imaginative. And so that's the beauty of mind. It can kind of go either way. But the planning or the past and future thoughts, ask yourself how many of the thoughts you had might fit in this bowl. So there's that. And then there might be the worry bowl. The worry bowl. How many of the thoughts are actually, if they were distilled down, they would come, they would simply be some form of worry, whether it's for ourselves or others or the planet, it's some form of worry. Then we might have, if I could get that out of here. Okay, this is kind of a big bowl. So I'm going to go with, this is comparing. When we compare in some form, and we have to have comparing, because we have to say, well, I'm going to eat that, or I'm going to eat that and not that because that's poison, or I'm going to make choices. So it's just some form of comparing. But this kind of comparing is the kind of comparing that leads to more suffering, not less, because it usually leads to poorer choices. It's usually we're comparing ourselves. Oh, that person's meditation looks flawless, right? That person looks amazing. They've lost 15 pounds during this pandemic. How did that, like, and then it's a whole big thing. And it's usually attached to, again, some form of judgment. And the judgments, even when they are against another person, are so often, they're really us projecting and judging ourselves harshly, right? And then some form of inflation or deflation, where again, we're looking at somebody and we're like, okay, or ugh, based on what other people's lives are like, or what's out there. So there's that. A lot of thoughts are, well, no, they're not a lot of thoughts. That's why they're in the kitten water bowl. Joy and gratitude, those are also, this is a thought bowl, but you'll notice that for most people, which one is the biggest? The not being here bowl, not being now. Joy and gratitude is the kitten water bowl, for a lot of people. And then finally, peace and equanimity, like that's not even, I mean, that's just a little chopped parsley bowl. That's nothing. That's for most people. Okay. So, and inside each bowl are all the longer thoughts. They're just like pieces of paper, like almost like a fortune cookie, that they fit in here. So here's what I'm going to say. A huge part of the practice, this is a major insight when it comes. And I can say it, I've heard it, but until we really sit and watch the mind and become quiet and notice the fact of the matter is that the thoughts, it's a waterfall of thoughts, and it never stops. It never stops. It just goes and goes and goes. And maybe there's a cosmic hand tipping it. And guess what? It's the pitcher that it's going to refill no matter what I do. And then we end up with all of those thoughts inside that bowl. They end up being like a mind soup. It's this really, but I have good news, which is that we can take this and we can turn it into paper mache with cultivation and we can create something. Now, what would happen if we added a little bit of the waterfall, you know, to the peace bowl? Because what happens is wherever the waterfall and our attention goes, this grows. Whatever it is will grow. And so the really interesting thing about our minds and more really our hearts is that we can expand. Our container will expand to fit whatever we are focusing our attention on and whatever seeds we are watering. That is what grows, right? So the container grows as well. So what would happen if we watered peace? That would be such a different experience, right? But often we're just keep, without even thinking about it, the waterfall is just pouring into the planning or the self-judgment or the other things. And then we just end up with this mess to clean up. So there's that. Um, so that, like I said, this is a major insight that it's a waterfall and it won't end. And that also we can, with time, when the mind becomes still, I'm guessing that probably what we all want to know is, okay, but how? How do we do any of this? Well, one, it's practice. And the primary way, there's a huge farm truck going by right now, if you can hear that. I don't know if you can. Part of the way that we do this is by unhooking from the thoughts. And so we put ourselves into states where we're not thinking. That is why mantra works so well. It's the repetition of chanting, or often in certain forms of meditation, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be well, may you be free. It doesn't say, may you be free of thoughts, right? But the repetition unhooks us. A wonderful way to unhook is to go into nature, because when we are gardening, when we're working outside, when we're connected to the earth, we're not up here. We're here at the level of the soul, at the level of imagery, at the level of working with and not against. So that's part of the way that we can unhook from the thoughts, and the beliefs that we have about ourselves are persistent, and we won't be able to talk about all of those today, but I would love to hear what some of those are for you, and how we might work with them in the future. So I'm going to come back to center, supposedly, and then let's have some questions, and let's talk about this a little bit. And if you do have any questions about the practice of mindfulness of thoughts, or anything I know that I have learned, I am happy to share. And then